Well, hello everybody, and hello John Scott. Thank you so much for joining us this week.
My
And
absolute pleasure. I've been waiting for this with bated breath.
oh, bless you. And hello, Alistair. How are you?
I'm very well. A bit hot in London. The sun has actually broken through, and that massive pallet arrived today as well. So I'm just coming doing that. So
Well, I look as if I'm in a dungeon. I'm actually in a hotel room in Edinburgh, and I can confirm that it is drizzly rain here and blooming cold. So bring some sunshine up the north. We need it. Is it nice where you are, John?
It's kind of one of those blurry days. It's warm, but it's grey. There's no sunshine. We can't sit out in the garden or anything.
Well, it's not even warm here, but never mind. Anyway, so we're here to discuss this week's Sewing Bee, and it was Diva's week, and we're heading into the semi-final. Now, we should have really had Grace on. I think next year, when it's Diva's week, we definitely need Grace. But instead, we've got the lovely John Scott. John, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, would you like to just tell us quickly? And I know you've got news about a cruise next year.
Yeah, my name's John Scott, and I'm the lead presenter at Sewing Street, and I'm also the face of Paid for Shoes. And I also have a company called John Scott Sewing World, which is a website which is just a community. But I also have John Scott's Threads of Life, which is a subscription channel that anybody can join with for a monthly fee. I also have coffee that I sell. And as you say, a cruise will be coming very shortly.
So exciting.
All I can say is watch out for Kardashians.
Oh, yeah. A facelift is on the list for Father Christmas presents.
Whilst you've told us all about that, obviously you have a huge background in fashion and in TV.
Oh, I see you want to know that bit, not my plugging. All right then. So my name's John Scott.
Get your plugging.
I used to be a costume supervisor in the film industry, so I did films like James Bond films, Notting Hill, Four Weddings, Tomb Raider, Interview with the Vampire. Left that temporarily to go to be the fashion expert on This Morning, and basically never went back to films. I left films for a year, so I finished Tomb Raider. I didn't do the next James Bond film because I said I'm going to do a year on This Morning, and then I'll go back and I'll do Love Actually. And I never went back, basically. So I spent 10 years as the fashion expert on This Morning. Then through different reasons, had to move and everything like that. So then I became presenter on Rox & Co. Jewellery Channel, high-end jewellery channel. And then Sewing Quarter arrived, and now Sewing Street. So I'm a presenter on there now.
Brilliant. So you've got a lot of knowledge as well. So this week we had the first pattern challenge on the Sewing Bee, and the challenge was to do a fringe dress inspired by the amazing Tina Turner. It had to have fringes in various tiers, the straps, and an invisible zip, and they were given 4 hours. They used Duchess satin for the base of the dress, and obviously then the fringing. John, what was your thoughts about that particular pattern challenge?
I mean, I've got a lot to say about this year's series, but I'll hold myself back for now. They don't give them enough time. And I know it's a challenge and everything, but nobody can finish anything. But I think that was a particularly difficult challenge because, first of all, Duchess satin isn't the easiest fabric to work with. Then when you're putting in an invisible zip where you've got to match your rows of fringing, and that fringing gets absolutely everywhere, doesn't it? So in all honesty, I think they did really well in the time.
I mean, I did notice, Alistair, and it was one of my questions I was going to ask you. There was a selection of them used clips and masking tape to get rid of the fringe when they were putting the invisible zip in. Susie and I think it was Alex didn't use the masking tape. Sorry, I think it was Ailsa who didn't use the masking tape. And bless them, the fringe, as you say, got in the way. What would be your tip for putting that invisible zip in and dealing with the fringe, Alistair?
Well, before the cameras panned to them using masking tape, that was going to be one of my tips to actually to deal with it. However, what I would have done, rather than struggling to masking tape it and pin it after you've sewn it in, lay it flat on the table before you've sewn it, and then put 2 rounds of masking tape, one on the front and one on the back, and then treat it as a solid. what you can do is if you go to some stores, fringing used to come and it used to be joined at the bottom. John will remember this, and you get great satisfaction once you'd finished. You could pull.
Was like a chain stitch, wasn't it, along across the bottom, so you could hold, they held the fringe bits together. Yeah,
and then once you had finished, then you just literally peeled it, back, and it was the most satisfying thing. But they don't really seem to come very often with that anymore. But it's my biggest thing is baste your zip in. Because the thing is that when you baste a zip in, forget that there was fringing and everything like that, just on anything normal, any type of zip, once you baste it in, then work the zip, close it, and you can see whether or not it's fitting. Also, put the zip in on the back panels or the side panel first before you stitch the rest of the garment, because you're working with slightly flat.
Oh, we've lost him.
Oh, I saw him press the button.
He's pressed the button and he's disappeared. So whilst we're waiting, I know, first of all, I need to do a correction, John, because it was Susie and Pasha who didn't actually treat the fringing, shall we say, before they tried. I think they tried, whether it's, you're talking about time here, whether it's just a time pressure that they think, oh my goodness, the time's getting near, so we'll just go for it. I mean, Alistair told me a long time ago to always baste the zip in, and for the time it takes to do a very big tack and stitch, oh my goodness, it's the best. I'm going to let him back in. It's the best tip that we can ever give anybody, because...
Oh, no, Teddy, when we trained, we used to tack every single thing, and then as you get more experience, you don't. But if you need to, he's back. You need to put a zip in, you definitely need to tack it in.
Are you on your video? Have you got your video on, Alistair?
Well, have I? I'm sorry, no.
I can see you. I can see him.
I can see you. I've got your back down, yeah.
I apologise. That was my sister who's now finished school because she's a teacher, and she has this habit of ringing me to update me about goodness knows what. And I said, "You've just knocked me off." And she went, "Okay, bye then." I'm like, right, we're having words later.
So we're just talking. Alistair, I just apologised and said it was actually Susie and Pasha who hadn't tacked in, or sorry, dealt with the fringing. We're just talking, John and I, about, since you've told me to always baste a zip in, for the time it takes to do the biggest tack and stitches in the world, it saves so much angst. But whether it's a time pressure, because if you've got somebody going, you've got an hour to go, you've got 30 minutes to go, and you need to rush that zip in hindsight, taking that time to baste would actually be more beneficial in the long run, wouldn't it?
Well, if you that is exactly it. If you saw how many times, who was it? It was Pasha. She actually took her zip. She was trying to alter it and get it sitting. She was trying all sorts of quick things. And when you start to unpick, especially with Duchess satin, it's a bit like dupe on silk. The more times you actually try and unpick something, the weaker that seam becomes. And as soon as somebody puts that on, the whole thing is likely to, not the zip bursting, but the whole dress is going to come away from that seam. And you may as well start again. But the point I want to actually, because I've written this down, there were, if you look back at the actual program, they were very much trying to put the dress at an angle, because if you looked at the hem, that dress was longer before, because the fringing actually went at an angle at the bottom, on the bottom right hand corner of the actual finished sample. So I'm not sure whether or not they, in light of they maybe changed the actual Diva who it was supposed to be, but the actual sample itself, it wasn't how they told them to make it in the pattern, which was to put the whole piece all the way round. So yeah, fringing can be a bit, and also use a larger stitch. So for instance, Alex, she was getting lots of puckers and things like that. One, check your tension. However, when you're working with, say, lofty fabrics like fleece or something like that, I've always said use a much larger stitch. On a domestic, I would use a size 4. On an industrial, we use a size, a 3 to 3.5. Don't go all the way up to 5 on a domestic, because those are huge. But what that allows, when you're sewing, because the stitches are big, it allows more of a bounce rate, so that when the threads are connecting, there's more space in between the stitches. If you do really small stitches, it starts to gather, it just does. So that would be a way of getting rid of your puckers.
So with regards to that one, the one thing that really grates on me, and I know we've talked about it before, it's all about the colour. But the winner of that particular challenge was Luke, who I thought his looked amazing. However, he admitted that he has made fringe dresses, obviously, you know, for his drag persona. Basically, we realised that Susie was last and Pasha was fourth, so the fourth and fifth. And that was basically down to that prepping with the fringing. Then we had Alex, who had the gold one. Although hers was very lumpy, she came third. Ailsa had the red, as it wasn't lined up. She was second, and then Luke was first. What are your thoughts, John, on who won, etc.?
Okay, so I think that, like you say, he's made drag costumes, or anyone who's made costumes or have done musicals, you always end up having to do a fringe dress. There's always a routine where they're tapping or dancing, and you get used to it. If you're a regular dressmaker, like the two, like you say, in the bottom two, they won't have ever come across it before, will they? They'll never, ever, ever have used that before. So I think that one's come down to, I mean, his was brilliant. The pink one was, Luke's was absolutely brilliant. You know, even the bit round here where he got that, I mean, that was, he did a fantastic job. But like you say, he's done fringing before. And I think it's one of those things, isn't it, where to him it's simple because he's done it before, and to them it's really difficult. It could have been something completely different, and the girls who do normal dressmaking could have found that really easy. I think it's just the luck of the draw, isn't it? But they all looked good on the mannequins, but it's when you go in to have a look at your post-mortem and everything, you realise the mistakes are there.
Would you have used Duchess satin as the base normally for the basic dress?
I wouldn't have, I think you should only use Duchess satin for evenings, very simple evening gowns or beautiful simple wedding dresses. I don't know why they use Duchess satin. You need the weight underneath to hold all the fringing, but I wouldn't necessarily have used Duchess satin.
What would you have used, John?
Well, I don't really, John, I mean, as I was saying that, I was thinking, what would you have used?
Sorry.
What I think I would have done in real life is I'd have used a normal satin, but I'd have backed it on Catil or calico or something like that. If I was making that for the theatre, the fabric would have been backed on something, and then the fringing has got something, you know, it's got a base for it to be stitched to.
Right. And what about your thoughts, Alistair, on the winners and the losers on that particular challenge?
I thought Luke deserved to win. Definitely. It was a shame with a couple of them where the zips weren't. But I think at this stage, I think they are really. I mean, you can see in the editing now, it looks as if they're actually really judging now the sewing, rather than just making sort of like comments about, oh, I like this color and what have you. But I mean, that just shows you that's in the editing. I did think Susie did deserve to go in the bottom, and Pasha, you know, close fourth. The one thing that I would say, which is completely irrelevant, Alex needs to change her name to Michelle.
Why?
Why? Because she will say this en avance. Because all I kept thinking about every time she walked into the thing with that ginormous, you know, red beret with her red lips and a trench coat on.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Hello.
Uh-huh.
That's what the reference is.
Not everyone will know what you're talking about. That's showing your age now.
Age thing, see, absolutely.
Origin.
The one thing
that's what it does.
The other thing that when they edited it, which was quite interesting, because I did have a nightmare the first time I used those, was the loop turners for the spaghetti straps. Now, the tip that you gave me, Alistair, was cut your fabric on the bias and it'll come through straight away. Do you agree?
I do, but you have to be careful when you're pulling loops through. If you're for straps and things, if it's on the bias. Like I can talk about show costumes. If they're dancing in them every night, you then have to put like a ribbon inside it to stabilize it. Otherwise, the strap will get as they dance, because those dresses will be quite heavy with all that fringing on. And if they're trying to walk down a catwalk or something like that, but if you're dancing and doing a big rigorous dance, the straps are going to take a lot of weight the whole time. And if they're on the bias, they'll start stretching and getting longer. So you do a bias, but then you put a bodkin with a tape through it, like a straight tape through it, so that they can't. So it's easy to turn the bias tape through, but then the strap actually has some substance to it. It doesn't get any longer.
Oh, that's a great tip. Thank you. Shall we move on to the next challenge?
Yes.
Yes. So the transformation challenge, our personal favourite. So this time, no, I'm joking.
What's
this
he
time
doing?
it was I don't know what he's doing.
Oh.
Well, you said transformation.
So it was a walk on the wild side. They had to choose 3 animal prints. It had to be loungewear for divas who were on a day off. It had to be comfortable but have a big impact, and they were asked for it to look like loungewear that they would wear, maybe sitting in their PJs having a cocktails. Esme insisted that the prints had to be cohesive. They could use any trim and any haberdashery, but Esme wanted sparkle, but Patrick wanted comfortable. But they all had to have impact. So I'm going to go straight to you, John. What were your thoughts on the transformation challenge?
Okay, those people who know me know that I hate the transformation challenge. I cannot bear it normally because I don't understand what it. I think, right, this, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but I think there are two jobs, right? You're either a sewer or you're a designer, right? On the whole. So you either go onto a sewing competition to do sewing. You don't necessarily, the best sewers I know, if you gave them 90 minutes and said, here's a few bin bags, mate, they would, I'd be wrong. I still say to this day, the transformation challenge to me should be a challenge where they're all given a bit of crepe satin, they're all given a zip, and they're all told to put it in. So they're all playing from the same playing field, whatever you call starting point, because some people automatically have more designer side to them than they do sewing. And a lot of sewers I know they're technicians. They can sew beautifully, but they don't have they'll have flair to know how to make the costume, but they're not designers, they're sewers. So I get very angry about it. Having said that, I really liked yesterday's transformation challenge, this week's transformation challenge, because they actually made something that would be, I hate it when they go, oh, here's 20 swimming trunks, make a ball gown or something like that. You're going, nobody's going to do this. And then the year that they cut up all those beautiful tweed jackets, and I'm like, ugh. But this week's, I actually quite liked it because I quite liked what they made. And sometimes I'm amazed that what they can make, because you've got to think about it. I'd be still, at the end of the 90 minutes, I'd be going, well, should I do a blouse or should I do a skirt? I wouldn't have even got to the sewing machine. So I think this week's, they have to be applauded.
Yes. Was the one that stood out with you?
Well, I like Luke's only because it had that incredible kind of, it might not have been a very comfortable to lounge in, but it was kind of like theatrical, it was diva-ish, and it was I just thought I liked the one, and I'm gonna have to try and think of the name now. I think it's Passion. It was like a bikini with like a see-through.
Yes, it was.
I liked hers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alistair, what's your thoughts on that transformation challenge?
Right, so I know how they've loosely tried to tie in with being a diva, and obviously a diva, lounges around in, really stunning loungewear and what have you. I'm the same at home, I don't go out without a rhinestone on,
Well,
but
especially in your belly button when you're lounging.
Exactly. Everything's bejazzled.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, I'm with John, and the thing is, everyone knows I don't particularly like the transformation challenge either, and I find it quite wasteful I know it's for entertainment, but in certain aspects, and yes, John is perfectly correct, this is a sewing show, and it's not, we've got shows for, My Next Top Model and all this kind of business, so the judging always gets quite skewed. And also one thing, I'm sure John will agree with me, within the industry in sewing, so for instance, if we don't so in a sample room, I don't. So if I was asking some machinists to come in to sample up for our next collection, every single machinist has a specialism in particular groups of fabric. So there might be one, it's not just someone that can use a machine. People specialize in cottons, silks, leathers, beadwork. You know, there's all specific things. So in actual fact, the industry for sewing in the fashion industry or costuming or whatever is actually quite a professional, extensive industry. It's not just, oh well, you can sew, here you go, make this. So it's not quite how the show actually. I mean, I think I just wasn't really too sure about, and also because they said loungewear, I thought, why haven't you've said they can use anything from the haberdashery? Why didn't you give them some loop back cotton jersey that they had to use that, incorporate that in with the animal print and see how they worked the two together? But it was just a load of animal printed charity shop clothes, which I just didn't really, it never really floats my boat. But I think I didn't really agree with the amount of work that Luke had actually put into his. I didn't agree that he should necessarily have come last. Susie's, where they picked, you know, they were fussy about a hole. Oh, well, it was like, okay, well, it's a transformation challenge. You've given them an hour and a half, and in some cases, you're better off giving them a glue gun. You know, it's like, you know, that would be sort of quicker for what you asked them to do. Pasha third, Alex second, but Elsa one, which was the cowgirl one. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that technically is loungewear. It is more like a, you know, a costume for, you know, maybe Coyote Ugly film or something like that, you know. But I wouldn't necessarily say it was like, I think the brief was a bit.
Yeah. And interestingly, Ilse used fringing. You know, having had that challenge at the beginning with the fringing and the trauma of fringing, for some of them, you would think that they would never want to go near it again. And in fact, fringing was brought in on the last challenge by Alex on her. So I thought that was quite interesting that 3 of the challenges fringing crept in. So yeah, so I do think that it's very personal, these choices, rather than, and I agree with you, it's a designer challenge. And I also agree with you, John, that I'd be sitting there thinking, oh my goodness gracious me, what the heck am I going to do with all of this? So yeah, so should we move swiftly on from the transformation challenge? And the last fitting challenge or made to measure challenge had to be a spectacular stage outfit for a diva. It had to be exaggerated, it had to stand out. They wanted it to be flamboyant with 3D shapes and lots of colours, and they had 5 hours to do this. I'll go straight to you, John, because obviously with your background as well, you are probably one of the best people that we could have had on this week to give some opinions about this particular final challenge.
Well, I think first of all, you wouldn't expect a professional maker to make you a stage costume in 5 hours, first of all. Secondly, none of these people have had, apart from Luke, who's done his drag queens, they've not had experience of what a stage costume, what you need it to be. They didn't. Well, like when Patrick said to me, oh, what you put that light on there for? I don't like that. It's all about the impact and everything like that. I did wonder what LOLO was doing, though, because it didn't fit any of the brief things at all, did it? The trouble is, it's that thing again, it's a sewing show, and out of them, she's the best sewer. She was the best sewer, but she struggled with the design side of it again. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yes, the others have got, and also, you know, the youngsters will have, I'm calling her not young, but they'll have been to see Beyonce, they'll have been to see Shania Twain, they'll have been to, but she might not have been to her music. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it might have been completely out of her way. I do think, though, that what week number are we on? They should be able to sew a pocket on. You know what I mean? They should be able to sew a webbing strap on. They should be able to do a silver swimsuit that doesn't all ruckle up over the foo-foo and things. You know what I mean? it's kind of like
Other
maybe
technical
I'm
names are available.
sorry. But you know what I mean? It's kind of
Yes.
like I was a bit disappointed with all of them. I didn't think any of them were outstanding at all. I think Luke did an awful lot, excuse me, in his 5 hours. But then, like he said, he'd made these 3D costumes for drag queens before. So in the back of his brain, somewhere, he would have been able to go, oh, well, when I did that one for Foo Foo Lamar or whatever, oh, there's another Foo Foo, Foo Foo Lamar. I've kind of like, you know, kind of it's in his brain that, oh, this is how I make that shape. So it comes as second nature. So I just think like, what was the girl who did the cage, the Beyonce cage, right? I just think, Pasha, I think it needed to be bigger. And Esme's background in costumes, she was going, oh, this is marvelous. It's marvelous. It was from the stage, from Wembley. You wouldn't have known what that crinoline cage was, the panniers were, because they were so flimsy. And yes, she was happy that she'd made them and they were the right shape and everything. But from the back row in Wembley, you just think, well, she got around. You know what I mean? You wouldn't have been able to see that. You see, the pink coat, the Lady Gaga coat, would have been noticed because it was big. It was rubbish, but it would have been noticed more than the others because of the size of it and the flamboyance of it and things like that. So I wanted more. I wanted more.
I do agree with you. I think at this stage, yes, they've been given machines that they maybe are not familiar with. I think they use the genome machines. I was pleased to see that the Teflon coated foot or the non-stick foot was on the machine, and I think it was Luke who used that. When I saw Pasha, it was Pasha with the corset, with the webbing, fighting with the webbing. How many needles did they go through between them on that particular challenge? So what they need to be looking at is to be changing the needle for the right application, particularly on a domestic sew machine.
But also, I thought, I don't know if I'm right here, but I know that Jane from Elna and Janome, series 1 and 2 and 3, she was on location, on set with them. So you didn't ever see her, but you know what I mean? She was like, change your needle, do this. She was like a technical editor sort of thing. Whereas it looks at the moment like they've just left. It's where Adam fell down, isn't it? In his a couple of years ago, where Adam was doing his rainwear for his little kid and everything. He didn't know which foot and which needle to use. And it's kind of like they almost need, I know it's not cheating, but they almost need help in those situations because they don't know. They've never done it before. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's things like the Vaseline, the products are there, but if it just looks like a load of white stuff, so they don't know what to use it. And similarly, you know, yes, we're used to using machines. Machines are all fundamentally the same. They'll have a few more gadgets, they'll have a few more buttons on, but a walking foot can change your life. The Teflon coated foot or the non-stick foot can change your life if you're using that type of fabric. But for goodness sake, on week 7, why have they not cracked buttonholes? Why have they not gone home in between and thought, I need to practice? Because they're one-step buttonholes, which just means that they'll stick the foot on, they'll press the button, it'll do the top bar tacks and the sides all in one go. And they don't seem to have cracked that one because Susie yet again didn't put her button on.
No, but also, like, this is the one that they know what they're making, isn't it? They've planned it, they've chosen their fabrics and everything. So you'd think but like on when you're baking a cake or doing a recipe, you work out how long each stage has to take. And in a challenge like that, you'd think they would have their, like when you do Christmas dinner, you know, you've got to put the turkey in at a certain time, the potatoes in. You'd think they would actually do a running order of all the things and they don't seem to. They seem to just go to it at gung-ho, as though they've not even practiced the last one.
That's right. And Susie, in the past, it's certainly the beginning challenges. She did admit to having made 6 or 7 of the same dress. But whether they thought, because we've discussed with Deborah when we had her on last year, and we've spoken to other Sewing Bee contestants, they maybe don't think that they're going to get to this stage, and so therefore they don't practice as much the projects on this stage. But I think there's some very basics that they need to practice. One being buttonholes. They could sew their buttons on so much easier. And now, in this day and age, if you don't know how to do something, even in between shows, whether it's a couple of days or a week, you Google a walking foot, or you would Google how to do something, because it is actually all out there in the wherever it is.
Yeah.
Alistair, what was your thoughts on this last the made to measure challenge?
Well, ever since last week, I was kind of looking forward to this because I thought, oh, actually, we're going to see, it's going to be bright and colourful, and it's going to be, we're going to see some real attempts at sort of, like big catwalk pieces or something like that. And I was a little bit let down just because it was just, I mean, Shania Twain, for instance, which was Ailsa's one. I think Shania obviously has changed her career and become a burglar because it was so dark, the leopard print, that in actual fact, I think, that it was just very, very dark. But then that just felt as if it was just it wasn't inspired. It was like a direct copy of a costume that she had worn. So, but then again, saying that, I can't really say that because this is all about the sewing. It's not about it being design challenge, but it did say that it had to be inspired by Pasha's Beyonce look. I agree with John. When you're using stretch fabrics, there are slightly different rules when you're sewing it, and also you can be a little bit more candid in the fact that you can take a little bit more, because the tighter it is, you're going to get slightly better result. Obviously not way too tight, because it will end up getting smaller and smaller. But there's just certain details, and also the cage that she had made, it wasn't flamboyant. It just wasn't. It was nice, but it didn't like capture my imagination.
But look, do you think, sorry to interrupt, but do you think she might have, because in our industry, we've all made panniers, we've all made crinolines because it's part of our history. So to us, it's like, oh, it's just an old petticoat. But maybe to her, maybe she'd never ever seen a pannier before. So to her, that was outrageous and out there sort of thing. But to us, it was like, yeah, so she's made a crinoline, a pannier sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like it's one of the things that you get taught how to do. For instance, when I get taught, you did something once, you might have executed it okay, you might have gotten a pat on the back, but it was sort of thrown away, and you were said do it again, and you were like, what? And then you were still there 3 weeks on doing the same thing again and again and again and again. I tell you what, I've never forgotten how to do them.
No.
But it's slightly a different skill set. I mean, I thought the vinyl and everything that Luke was using, he actually on the points and stuff like that, I thought that it was extremely well sewn. The only thing I didn't like about Luke's was the addition of the actual helmet. I just didn't. I got where he was coming from with the ponytail coming out, but I wasn't a fan of that as for the styled look. So I would have maybe preferred him to have maybe just done a Croydon facelift and had something in a ponytail up here to do, and put the hair extension in. Anyway, that's me nitpicking. Alex's, now I wrote up here that Alex obviously was trying to be very, maybe she wasn't, but it came across to me as if she was trying to be very obscure and very clever in the person she had chosen to be her diva, which was a man. The divas can be a man. I was just about to say, you see, well, you are my much older sister, so I'll let you. But yeah, Alex's was just, I think I wrote down as well, I thought Alex's, if she had just have changed the fabric type she had made that costume out of, if she had used maybe a red lame with the fringing, it would have been a bit more spectacular. But she actually just used denim, and it was just like she was so hung up about trying to make it all perfect and what have you. So, and then Susie's, I thought the volume and everything and that's a shape that she's really comfortable with, because we've seen her in massive things. But I slightly agree with John as well. I would have liked to have seen a little bit, I'd have liked to have seen a little bit more.
The thing with regards to this particular challenge is talking about divas. Now, Orville Peck, who is the diva that Alex had picked, believe it or not, was talked about by Kylie Minogue, who is a diva, who, you know, is one of, you know, because members have picked. Orville Peck was mentioned by Zoe Ball this morning on radio too. And I'll be honest with you, up to the particular point of watching it last night, I wasn't really aware of him. And Patrick pulled his face when Alex had said it was Orville Peck, because his world of divas, my world of who a diva is.
Excuse me one little second.
Do you know what I mean, John? Your definition of a diva, or who you name as a diva, we're all very different. So that's very, again, it goes down to personality. So I did feel for her that I think she was on a loser straight the way, because they didn't know who she was talking about.
No, and also, do you think she didn't understand the brief? Because all the others had done theatrical costumes, and she'd just done his outfit from walking down a lane or something like that.
Yes.
And I think maybe she didn't actually understand what they wanted. I think that might be what it was as well.
And yet we've been told previously by several people who have been contestants that particularly on this last challenge, they submit what they're doing, the fabrics that they're using, and, you know, any of the haberdashery that they're using, to the production team. Now, one would presume an expert would look at that before they're allowed to go ahead. So if I had been reading that, I would have, in the production, said, do you understand the brief?
Yeah.
Rather than let it go on, or would they?
But maybe they didn't want her to win. Because I think this is another thing totally. I think the marking or the judging this year has been so off most of the time. And I don't know what your other guests have said, but do you know what I mean? It's a sewing show. We're judging sewing. And she was the best sewer there. But obviously, you know what I mean? And yes, not always the person you think is going to win is going to win. But do you know what I mean? There are, each week you go, oh, I know who's going this week. And then you go, oh, I didn't think it'd be her. I didn't think it'd be him. Some of them are obvious, you know what I mean? But it was just kind of maybe that it's the making of a television show has taken over from the sewing side, and they're going, oh, let's cause a bit of a scandal and get rid of the one that everybody thinks is going to win. Let's get rid of her in week 7.
And actually, there's been a consistent theme with, particularly on social media, there has been some controversy with regards to who has gone out. And we've been left with comments on the YouTube, and thank you everybody for leaving your comments on this YouTube videos, and thank you for supporting us. And people are not necessarily agreeing with the decisions. Certainly last night, because obviously it's gone out. It's slightly different times in the week, and certainly last night when I watched it, when I went onto social media, the big question marks were against Susie. Why is she still in? Now, I don't ever agree in sometimes the social media comments, and we've heard from Deborah, who was a contestant 2 seasons ago, where people have, or they think they have the right to comment in a very cruel way, and we're not doing that. We're talking about the sewing, and we just want some constructive, not criticism, but just points, and these are our opinions. But certainly there has been a lot of controversy this year, and people in the main appear not to be enjoying it as much as they have done on previous seasons. And this is it's season 10.
Yeah, I think it's had its day as it is. I think we have to have sewing programs on the show, but I think they either need to find a completely new one, or they need to revamp this one. I know thousands of people love it and still love it because it's a sewing show, but over the years you've got less. And how much sewing do we actually see? If you've got an hour-long show, I reckon there's only about 8 minutes of sewing at the absolute most. You know what I mean? So it's no longer an actual, you don't learn anything from it. The only time you've got a bit of instruction is at the beginning, when they say to make a waistcoat, you get 2 fronts and you join them like a graphic. That's the only thing you actually get to teach you about things.
Well, I think the answer to that is because in the beginning we used to get a bit of education how you did things, but of course they're selling the books, and so with each season they have the books. Again, there's a lot of criticism with the books, which people are saying that the patterns aren't correct or the instructions aren't correct in those books. Whether they're putting the reprints or the the amendments on their website, I have no idea. But there definitely has been a shift from that education and entertainment to just pure. This is my opinion, of course.
Yeah,
to just
yeah, yeah.
pure entertainment.
I agree. Yeah.
And what about you, Alistair?
No, no,
Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, the thing is that a lot of, I mean, we've seen in this, I think this season has been really, it's been really thrown together, in my opinion. And purely and simply why I'm saying that is that when they've actually had them do some of the pattern challenges, they were all getting particular things wrong. Now that if you put a load of people in a room, not everybody's going to get, and they have to follow the pattern. So the patterns aren't correct. I mean, when they had that collar in the bomber jacket, that collar wasn't right. That collar was way too small. And there's just certain elements. I think whoever's coming up with like the ideas for, say, for instance, the themes or the transformations, like for instance, what did I write down? So next week is Icon Week. Well, we've just had Diva Week. Now you've got Icon Week. Why didn't you just have Icon Week rather than Diva Week? Because they are, or you should have, I don't know, you should have Theatre Week, where that could open, you could do absolutely anything. You could do an opera gown if you wanted to. But I think actually for the people at home, I just think the pattern challenge, if we done, which we've been banging on about for years, if everybody, say for instance, you've got to make a bomber jacket, you're all given 2 meters of the same fabric, the same zip, the same, everything's the same. So they just have to, they're there, like the bake off, you reveal it, and they can go more in depth on that section and show where people, how they're actually doing it and how people are doing things slightly different, and then see the end result. But when you're asked, but when you're critiquing these guys on the fact of their fabric choice, well, that's what was on the table. So you can't critique the fabric choice because you put it there as a selection. So it just, and I just think, I think the presenters as well, I think this year they've tried to make Esme and Patrick a bit more fun in a certain aspects. And this particular episode, I think either Patrick's come into some money or something, because he was very chirpy this episode, whereas he's always been a bit more somber on the other ones and a bit serious. So I don't know what, maybe I don't know, they were slipping them gin at the behind the scenes. I don't know, but it just seems as if it's lost its way ever so slightly. And I feel now, as these types of programs go on, we've seen it with the Bake Off, that contestants come on with a business plan. This is they're going to give up their high paid job in finance, and this is what they're going to do for the rest of their life. Well, having been through the fashion industry, I can let everyone into a little bit of a tip. When you want to start your own brand, what we say is, I'm not a Londoner, but what we say down here, you got to have a bit of handbag. What that means is you've got to have quite a lot of money behind you to survive producing a collection. If you've got spring, summer, and if you miss one single season, that can throw your brand to the bottom of the pile again. So forget that you've been in, Vogue or Cosmopolitan and all the Tatler and all those magazines. It means absolutely nothing. If you miss one season or can't afford to pay a supplier or what have you, there's more to this industry than that's what you do. If you're wanting to become a designer, then, I'm not sure this program is necessarily the vehicle. Baking, I think, is slightly a little bit different because it's, and say like, MasterChef. Whereas in actual fact, when you look at MasterChef as an example, a lot of those MasterChef chefs still want to go in as a commie chef and learn from the bottom and go up. Whereas the Bake Off and the sewing shows, they want to come in, do their thing, and then literally land that, that really prestigious job. Whereas you've really got to learn your craft. Like Kim might agree, we went on shop in television when we're telling people about a sewing machine and people that might not have started before, practice doing straight lines and do a simple cushion. It's straight lines, perfect that, and then go on to all curved and wiggly and all sorts of different things. But I was sat at an industrial machine at Central St. Martin's. I was given a tiny piece of calico and I had to do pin hem upon pin hem upon pin hem. And anyone that doesn't know what pin hemming is, you fold the fabric over, you stitch down, then you fold it a bit like a pleat next to it, and then you do another straight line. And when you end it, you've got lots of little ridges, which are all like pin hems. And then when they look at it, they're looking for perfect alignment and even spacing, and if you didn't get it right, it was in the bin and you said, right, here's another piece, and you were like, oh god, not another piece.
One of my first classes at Wimbledon School of Art was with Fran Bristow. She had these little squares of calico and she said, right, everybody go away and do a straight seam. And we did a straight seam, and her desk was higher than and you'd have to go up to go, no, do it again, no, do it again. And lots of the people, lots of the girls I was with had already got fashion degrees and everything like that. But literally, I spent the whole day and I only got to the second seam at the end of the first day. Everyone else done 4 or 5, but I literally, no, it's not good enough, to go and do it again. That's not 5/8 of an inch, go and do it again. That's not straight, go and do it again. But it's the only way you learn.
Of course it is, absolutely. So the winner of Garment of the Week this week was Luke. I've written obvious. I think this week was perfect for him, particularly with his drag background. And Alex went, and it actually broke my heart when I heard her say, to be on that show, you need resilience. It's not easy. You need lots of resilience. I think we've fairly well said that Alex was the best sewer. Was there anybody that you thought should have gone rather than Alex, John?
Well, not so much. Alex shouldn't have gone this week. I mean, I suppose it depends, because yes, she didn't finish, and yes, she didn't. But the sewing that she did do was better than most of the other people sewing. And I don't want to bring Susie down, but Susie should have gone weeks ago, in my opinion, as a sewing thing. And I felt a bit bad this week because I've been saying that all along. And then her mum put something on social media going, like, she's a lovely girl, don't be nasty about her. And like you're saying, we're not being nasty about her whatsoever. I'm sure she's a gorgeous girl. But then a few of their sewing, like when you look at the top of the zips, even this week, some of the zips, even at the top, were like rough. And like you say, week 7, they should be able to put a zip in, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I think a few of them could have gone this week, sort of thing. But I don't think Alex should have gone.
And have you got somebody that you think could win it?
Well, the thing is, right, I don't think any of them are worthy of winning. That's in my opinion, because they're, like on the pottery, on the baking, you can see them getting better and better and better and more adventurous. I think these are all sort of still on the same level. Not that they were in week 1, because remember week 1 with that skirt, and like not one skirt was right. I don't know if they've chosen different kinds of people or different skill level or whatever, but I wouldn't give any of them a job.
What about you, Alistair?
I'm trying to play the game now, so it's like literally I'm trying to sort of like look at what how they're editing it, and I'm thinking, right, okay, because literally they would go to Alex quite a bit, and Alex, it was almost as if I was sort of thinking, oh god, you're already a standalone presenter, kind of thing, the way that it was edited. And I didn't warm to Alex as much as the other contestants. I found maybe it's her. I mean, I don't know her personally, so I can't really say this, but from how it comes across on camera, I wasn't quite sure what her personality really sort of like was. You didn't get very much of her, so I didn't find her an overly interesting contestant to watch. I'm going to sort of, I think the way that it's being edited, we're now being led to believe that obviously Luke's starting to champion. I don't think Luke has won it. I think I'm going to hedge my bets, and I think it's going to be Elsa.
Right. I've written it down. Week 7.
No,
what
I
Alistair
agree.
said.
I kind of agree. With you there.
And John, right.
Yeah.
So we ask everybody to leave some comments every week, their opinions, and we've had lots, and I read all of them. And what I'm going to propose to Alistair at the end of all of this is that we're doing Ask Alistair, because people are asking some very technical questions. Keep them coming. But this week's winner is Sally Taylor, who has left a comment on our YouTube. So Sally, if you can contact me, I will leave the email address, and then we can get your prize sorted out. Alistair, you have a prize this week, don't you, to give away?
I have a very special prize. This is actually worth quite a lot of money. So you know that I have an affinity, an association.
Association.
I've just had an epiphany. So this is a Savile Row fat quarter pack. Now these are 72 centimeters by 50 centimeters. Don't worry, guys, I'm not trying to sell it to you. This is a prize. So that's it. And you get how many do you get in there? You get 1, 2, 3. You get 6 fat quarters. That's quite a big meterage in actual fact. So it's a lot. That's a lot of money by itself. So that's Holland and Sherry. Also, you'll be given in this prize. You get I call it a wool roll. Now this is the equivalent to a whole meter, but it's in full strips, 150 centimeters, but it's in lots of different types of wool. So I think someone's going to make a really cool quilt top with all of those. I think really lovely.
Excellent.
And what do I have to do? What do I have to do to win it? What's the competition? What do I do?
So this is a competition. You just have to leave a comment, and then what we do is we pick it randomly. So it's completely free giveaway each week. There's been lots of people are really astounded when they hear their name. So Sally Taylor she'll win the prize from last week. So any comments that are left this week on the YouTube page, we'll look through them and then pick a winner and announce it next week. And we'll also, because John, thank you so much for giving up your time today.
We'll
make sure that all of the links are for John's Sewing World, where you can subscribe to that for a monthly cost. And then you'll announce you've got your coffee subscription. What's he doing? What's he packing?
He's packing his bag.
I'm getting ready for the cruise.
Oh.
It's not yet. It's not yet.
Oh.
He's going to announce it. Did you not listen? He's going to put the link on, so people need to like and subscribe to John's Facebook page. And as soon as it's announced, right, you can get your keys packed.
Right.
What's
next May? It's next May, Alistair.
Next May, right? Get your suntan lotion out.
Time. Well, I'm there. Factor 50 and a bottle of Diet Coke, and I'm there.
Perfect. And also remember, anybody who wants to buy anything on the House of Alistair website, if you use the code BEE15, you'll get 15% off everything, including those loop turners that they were using on the spaghetti hoops on the first challenge. So thank you so much, John, really for coming along. And
my pleasure.
I'm just trying to find the right buttons now.
Oh, here we go.
Oh yeah. Hopefully everybody can join us next week when we're definitely, even though I announced that it was going to be Debbie Shaw this week, it's definitely Debbie Shaw next week. I got my weeks mixed up, John. I'm easily confused, man.
I could have worn a wig. Nobody would have known the difference.
I know.
Except she's much older than me, isn't she? So it might have been a bit of a giveaway.
Yeah. There would have realised, you see. But anyway, thank you so much, and thanks, Alistair, and we'll see you.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Bye.